Welcome to the Future of Medicine podcast, presented by Predictive, the first DNA-based digital twin to predict and prevent over 22,000 diseases.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Future of Medicine. In this podcast, we explore how technology and science are shaping the medicine of the future, from genomics to wearable devices, artificial intelligence to at-home diagnosis and treatments. Our guests will share how they foresee the future and how they contribute to it. Today, I have the pleasure to have Adrien Chatillon with me. Adrien is a serial entrepreneur and the CEO and co-founder of Actipulse Neuroscience, a medical company specialized in non-invasive brain stimulation therapeutics for the treatment of major depressive disorder. And that is also under clinical trials for Alzheimer's disease and post-stroke rehabilitation. Actipulse has already treated more than 11,000 patients in the past 2 years for major depressive disorders and has an objective of reaching 100,000 patients by 2025. Actipulse Neuroscience was founded in 2017 and has offices in Cambridge, Massachusetts, Mexico City, and Santiago de Chile. Adrien, welcome to the Future of Medicine. Can you tell us more about you and Actipulse Neuroscience?
Alex, thanks for having me. Yes, so while I'm like you are, I'm also French, and I co-founded Actipulse now almost 5 years ago with the goal of helping people suffering from psychiatric and neurological disorders. As you know, these mental health issues, these brain issues are expanding. There's more people that need treatment, and drug treatment just doesn't cut it. We need another line of treatment. That's where neuromodulation comes in, and that's where Actipulse comes in.
Okay, very good. So can you tell me more about the solution itself? So what stage are you targeting? Also, what it is and what it does?
So Actipulse, we're specialized in a technique called non-invasive brain neuromodulation. And we have two stages. So the first stage is in revenue stage, which is major depressive disorder. So we already have on market this device to treat MDD patients. And on the clinical trial side, clinical research side, we're studying this same technique to try to find a solution for neurological disorders such as Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's, and post-stroke rehabilitation. So in brain neuromodulation, it's kind of let's say a tree, and you have different ramifications. We're specialized in one called non-invasive brain stimulation using high frequency and low intensity magnetic pulses. You have in a hospital settings, it's called transcranial magnetic stimulation, or TMS. This technique has been approved for the past, I think like almost 20 years now by the FDA to treat patients suffering from depression that are resistant to medication, which is 4 patients out of 10. So when this first line of treatment of medication doesn't work, patients go to the second line of treatment, which is neuromodulation. The problem with brain neuromodulation, and although it works very well, around 70% of patients reach remission, it's still a very expensive treatment. So just in the US alone, it costs around $15,000 to get treatment, so that limits the impact of the therapy. And it's also very cumbersome to use because you need to go every day to the hospital. One session is only 45 minutes, but you require around 30 sessions. So if you add up commutes to that, you're wasting around 2 hours per day to go to the hospital for your treatment. So not a lot of people want to access this treatment. So our goal as a company, specifically for major depressive disorder, is to bring this incredible treatment from the hospital directly to the home of the patient. So in order that they may have a more cost-effective treatment, lower cost of treatment, and also we remove the need to go to the hospital every day. That's the goal of the company.
Okay, so that sounds really exciting. So you remove all that friction and all that burden to go to hospitals. Basically, the way it works, okay, let's say that someone has suffered from Parkinson or Alzheimer or some other depressive disorders. So they go to their physicians, to hospitals that are using your solution, that are recommending your solution, and the patient receives it from the hospital. So the hospital, basically, they will give the device, which looks like a helmet or something, right?
Right. So, yes, sorry, what's the question?
Yeah. So that's the way. So and they just go back with the device at home, and instead of going back 30 times or 40 times, so they can just do it from home. How do the physicians make the follow up? Make sure that that this is done, that the treatment is followed.
So that will be in the future. So currently, so going from the hospital to the home of the patient, there's a technological and clinical challenges. Our goal for us was instead of going straight to the patients, to the homes, we had a first intermediate step, which was instead of going directly to the hospitals, we needed to go to the small physician's practices. So the small psychiatric office and your next door physician. So that was the first goal. So instead of having a bigger device, now we have much like a medium-sized device. And instead of physicians, psychiatrists paying $250,000 for it, now they only need to pay $15,000 for the device. So that has obviously had a strong impact on how many more patients we could treat, because we have around 210 devices on market. So not just in hospital, but more practice. And obviously we reduced the cost of treatment from $50,000 to $2,000. There's still obviously the problem that patients still need to go, for the 30 days to the physician. So that's why, the next step will be for the home device. For the home device, we are about to start we just pre-submitted with the FDA our application, and we will start our pivotal trial by the Q1 of next year. So hopefully we'll by 2023 we'll have the approval to go directly to the home of the patients. Meanwhile, we will keep treating patients at small physician practices until we can get approval to treat them from home.
Okay.
Whereas for Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, that's still under clinical investigation. And while you can reach remission for psychiatric disorders such as anxiety and depression, there's no treatment for Parkinson's or Alzheimer's. What we're trying to test clinically, is if we can slow down disease progression. That will be just the major first step, just to slow down disease progression.
Yeah, well, which would be an important step already.
Huge step.
So basically, you're bringing what are in devices that are usually in large hospitals because you need a lot of equipment. You bring it to the smaller practices, around the corner practices. So you basically sell your solution to those smaller practices and clinics, right?
Exactly. So
they are your clients.
Those are our clients, not a major hospital, but small, physicians, psychiatrists, and very small mental health clinics, which are have a stronger geographic reach on the market than just big hospitals.
Okay, yeah, very good. And today, so as you talk about the geographical reach, is it only in the US, or do you provide that solution also in other countries?
So now currently we're let's say our testing phase, we are only present available in Mexico and Chile. That's where we are treating our patients. That's where we get our first the clinical data and our first clients to test business model as well. And that's why the next step for the US will be directly to the home of the patient, and we will skip that intermediate phase of going to the psychiatric offices. We'll go directly to the home of the patients.
Okay, well, that's very good. So if I'm a patient today and I have if I suffer from one of those diseases that you cover, how can I benefit from it?
So when a patient, what will happen is they will go through the first set of treatment, which will be pharmacological for cost effectiveness reasons. And if since 4 out of 10 patients do not respond to pharmacological treatment, if unfortunately the patient doesn't respond to drug treatment, he or she will go to the second line of treatment, which will be neuromodulation. So today in the US, they can only go to major clinics or hospitals to get the neuromodulation. And that's why there's a need, especially with COVID, to bring treatments from home. Now, as people beforehand, they thought that they could only be working if they went to the office. Now they know that they can work from home. Well, it's the same thing with COVID. It has shown people that you don't really, for specific cases, obviously, you don't need just to go to the hospital, but you can also be treated from home. And I think that's where medicine and psychiatric treatment is heading towards.
Okay, very good. So you were founded in 2017. You have treated more than 11,000 patients, and I guess it includes a lot of clinical trials. How are you funded? Who are your investors? Because it requires, I guess, a lot of money.
So this is the trick, right? So it's a very good question, because when we talk to a lot of fellow health tech and medical entrepreneurs, some of them spend more time searching for money than searching for clinical answers. And when we co-founded the company, we were wondering, we didn't want to do that because there's a fundamental ethical question running a medical company, right? Because if you have expensive startup costs, expensive clinical research costs, expensive manufacturing costs, at the end of the process, you will have an expensive therapeutic, be it a medical device or a drug. And there's an ethical question there, because if it's expensive, maybe some patients will not be able to access your treatment. And I founded and I'm running a medical company. It's not a fintech, and our goal, even though we are not a nonprofit, we're a company. Our goal here is to treat the many and not just the few. And I think this comes, from our French upbringing, that thankfully back home, healthcare is available to everybody, to the many, not just the few. And I think that's the goal. That's the ethical reason why we wanted to do this starting costs in Mexico. So this is why our clinical trials and our manufacturing is done in Mexico, because this way we know that, first of all, our patients will be able to access our therapeutics, our treatments for an affordable price. And second of all, we keep the control of the company. So right now, we have even though, have treated so many patients, we have around $2 million in revenue. We have a few patents pending. We've done a lot of things, and we're about to start our last pivotal trial. We never raised a big series or a big round, because while we were talking to some investors, especially in the US, their main question was, how can you make more money? Whereas I think that the right question is, how can we treat more patients? That's the question. And they always ask me, how is Actipulse going to become a $1 billion company? And so I always tell them, no, the question should be, how is Actipulse going to become a 1 billion patient company? Because I think we should focus first on the patient, then the money will come for everybody to keep doing research, for the founding team, and then for our investors. So that's why I like to call Actipulse, to name it, a high growth, low cost medical company.
Okay. Very good. And I saw that you also started an equity crowdfunding round on Republic, so the republic.co. What are your objectives with that campaign, and what are your plans with the money that you will raise?
So that's true. We were raising a round with Republic. I found it fascinating, and I think it has a parallel with us, in a sense that we want to democratize access to mental health care, and Republic wants to democratize access to investing, And I think we share that same vision of democratizing, being there for the people. So when we got the offer to raise on Republic, I think it was a great idea. And even though I would like to keep control of my life of the company, as a medical entrepreneur, the better you go, and those type of FDA private trials cost money. So you need to open up your equity. And I think that was a great idea to start with Republic. And the goal for this funding will be, for this clinical pipeline of ours. First, for the pivotal trial for the FDA, and the rest of the other diseases such as Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and post-stroke rehabilitation. Last year, we finished our first randomized control and double-blind clinical trial for Alzheimer's disease using our technology. Unfortunately, COVID had an impact on recruitment, and hence on the final results. So we're launching a second pilot trial the next year. So all this money we're getting right now will be just for our clinical pipeline, which is, at the end of the day, that the clinical pipeline, the publications, and the IP is what's the real value of the company.
Okay, very good. So you have a solution that enables or will enable patients to receive treatment from home instead of going to hospital. Is it how you envision the future of medicine and healthcare? Do you think that most patients will be able to be diagnosed, followed up, and then treated from the comfort of their home? Is it the way you see it?
I think it is. So I think it's a very broad question, but if I, center it to neurological and psychiatric universe, I think that's the future. And we've seen it now with COVID, right? That a lot of psychiatrists beforehand, it was funny because they didn't want to do any teleconsultation, say, no, I need to see my patient, right? But when COVID came and they really couldn't, for medical and legal reasons, couldn't see any patients, they opened up to, telehealth consulting. And they really like, psychologists, psychiatrists, and also patients are really enjoying that. There will still be obviously physicians' offices. Some patients want to go to the physician. There's this, we call it the white blouse effect, that just by the fact that you're going to see a physician, you already feel better. So that's important, and patients like to go there. So that's that they will still continue. But I think treatments, especially like neuromodulation treatment and following up treatment, that will be done from home, right? Because sometimes you go to a psychiatrist, the psychiatrist will tell you, hey, come back in a month and to see how you're doing. Sometimes there's not really point of going to a psychiatrist just to tell him or her that, yeah, I'm feeling better, I'm feeling worse. This could be done with the obviously telehealth, but also wearable devices and many things that are being studied for the future.
Okay, well, so what do you think will hospitals and clinics become if there are way less patients going there?
Well, we still need to, we won't do a surgery in your house by yourself. So you still need everything that's really, clinically urgent. There's still some medical things that will be obviously done by hospitals. I think hospitals will adapt to these new trends, using more technology, using more telehealth. And I think that also will be good for hospitals and clinics, because sometimes there's so many patients, it gets overcrowded when things could be done, virtually. So I don't know if you know the concept of dark kitchens, these restaurants that don't have, any tables or anything. They just have a kitchen and they sell via, delivery. So maybe we could think about dark hospitals, dark clinics that just are virtual clinics, that everything is online and for specific cases can send you all maybe some devices that can be used from home to follow up the patient. So that stops the patients the need to go to the clinic, because also for society, going to a hospital, going to the clinic, it's a cost, it's expensive.
Okay, well, thanks a lot. I think you really have an amazing solution, and that can really help a lot of people. I hope everyone will soon be able to benefit from it. Best of luck for your clinical trials, and of course for your equity crowdfunding campaign on Republic. Adrien, thanks a lot for your time, for sharing your vision of medicine and healthcare. And thank you everyone for joining this podcast on the future of medicine, and see you next week.
Thank you, Alex.
This was the Future of Medicine podcast, presented by Predictive, the first DNA-based digital twin to predict and prevent over 22,000 diseases. Learn more on www.predictivecare.com.